Thank you, everyone, for having me here. My name is Michiel Prins. I'm one of the 4 co-founders of HackerOne. We are the largest vulnerability disclosure and bug bounty platform with more than 200,000 registered security researchers on our platform. I'm a software engineer. I'm also a hacker. I like to hack stuff, and I like it. Yeah, this is better. Good. I like to hack stuff also on our own platform. To break the ice a little bit, 2 fun facts. At HackerOne, we call each other hackeronis because it's the common mispronunciation of our company name. And this photo is of me and my co-founder. We know each other since we are 1 year old. All right. Now, what is a hacker? No, everybody shouldn't turn their phone into airplane mode right now because you're scared. Because our definition of hacker is a little bit different than what most people think. Like a hacker is, oh, scary, maybe they're gonna break into my phone or they're like gonna empty my wallet or something like that. But that is not the definition we use. Mainstream media, media likes to portray a hacker as somebody who's bad. We call that more like a criminal or maybe a malicious attacker or something like that. What we call a hacker is someone who enjoys the intellectual challenge of creatively overcoming a limitation. And that, to me personally, captures kind of like the 2 characteristics of a true hacker, which is somebody who's very curious, extreme curiosity, and very creative as well. So in a way, hackers are like the heroes of the internet. Let's start with a image. This is something we see sometimes, more frequent nowadays. And I personally like the pace of innovation that we see in the fintech space, and like we see everything with blockchain technology. It's like innovating at such a rapid pace that I've never seen before, and it's just very fascinating for me. But there's one thing that can stop all of that innovation, and that is security, or maybe better said, the lack of security can stop all of this innovation. So let me tell you about this thing called the blockchain graveyard. I don't know if anybody knows about it, but it is a place where already 59 cryptocurrency and blockchain-based companies have ended up after a security failure. And basically, if you have a data breach, you have about the average cost for the data breach to recover from it is around $4 million. But when you are a cryptocurrency or cryptocurrency exchange, the damages are often much higher because when the wallet is empty, the wallet is empty. The money is probably not going to come back. So $4 million is pretty cheap then still. But luckily, this blockchain graveyard has done a little bit of analysis on all of these breaches. And the most common reason these places get breached is through server and application level vulnerabilities. And that's all software. So software, we can test for vulnerabilities and we can make sure that the vulnerabilities are fixed before they can be exploited by bad guys, right? So that is something we call hacker-powered security at HackerOne. So what is that? Hacker-powered security is kind of where you're leveraging the collective knowledge of hundreds of thousands of hackers worldwide, and they're willing to lend you a hand and try to identify vulnerabilities in your systems. And because there are so many, the chances that they are found before somebody else can exploit them, somebody malicious can exploit them, are much higher. So it's kind of like a race for who can find it first. And since you're using a large army of hackers, it's kind of very open because this community of hackers lives all around the world. They're not hiding. And it's open and transparent. It's kind of in the same way a distributed ledger can be. And what we're seeing at HackerOne is that the cryptocurrency and blockchain technology, that industry, is one of the fastest industries to adopt hacker-powered security because it's so critical. Like, if you get breached, then it's done. So it's also not new. We have paid out over $32 million to hackers already, globally. And there are 200,000 of them. So there are a lot of hackers that are willing to lend a hand to businesses that are willing to secure themselves. So why is it growing so fast? So this is an observation I am seeing, is previously you had your when you're a software developer, you're always punished when you make a mistake. Like, oh, you introduced a security vulnerability. That's bad. You wrote poor code quality or something like that. So it's always like a fight between the security team and the developer. And that's kind of changing. I see that nowadays, developers know that they're making mistakes. It's normal. We're human, right? We're making mistakes. We're introducing vulnerabilities. So we should embrace that. And we're also changing the way we develop. Like, we don't develop a whole feature release for a quarter and then we test it and then we deploy it. No, we deploy every day. So every day we can introduce new security issues. So you need a solution that can also test for security issues in the same pace that you develop with. And that means if you know that you're going to have vulnerabilities, then you also know that somebody's going to find those vulnerabilities. And hopefully that is somebody good and not a bad guy. But then let's run through this. Like, how would a hacker contact your company about a vulnerability? Well, first of all, you try to Google for, does this company have a policy or a process or an email address, or like search for company name, report vulnerability. The chance that you get something back is very low. We did some research. There's like 94% of the Forbes Global 1000 does not have anything on this. There's no web page, no email address, or no process documented. So then what you do? Email customer support? Yeah, they're probably not the most technically qualified to read the vulnerability report you're trying to send. So then what often happens is you go to Twitter and say like, hey, urgent, I need to contact you. Social media team probably doesn't take it seriously, or you try to contact the CTO on LinkedIn, and it gets buried in all the recruiter emails. You try to contact them through Facebook. It's very hard. But more likely is that the hacker actually doesn't do anything. They're like, okay, I found a vulnerability, but I'm going to be doing nothing. Because they're scared. There's no way for them to tell what's going to happen because there's no process. So if they try to contact you, maybe the FBI will kick in their door next day. Like, we literally come from an era where if you, as a hacker, you find a vulnerability, you get punished. It's bad. So this is also pretty dangerous because now you know that somebody who is actually good-willing knows about a vulnerability, but they're too scared to tell you about it. So will a criminal tell you about it? Probably not. They're not going to reach out to you. They're just going to exploit it. Me and my co-founder have a lot of stories here. We found a lot of vulnerabilities, and you try to report them. It is always the challenge of who do I contact? Where do I go? What's the process? For example, a couple years ago, we found a vulnerability in Airbnb. And we're like, okay, maybe to have a page on this. So we go to airbnb.com/security. And there was a page. It was not a 404. There was actually a page. But the page was talking about what you had to do when your home was vandalized by a guest or when something was stolen from your home. And we're like, oh, that's probably not the right team to reach out to. So we try, and they're like, nah, we have no idea what you're talking about. Oh, that's what we got. So nowadays, they run one of the best hacker-powered security programs in the world, and they have lots of hackers participating in their programs. We tried through LinkedIn, we tried through a lot of stuff, we tried through security@companyname.com, it always bounces, you never know. And that was us, we were even trying, right? Like, we were attempting to contact. And there are more hackers that are finding the same stuff, but they will never attempt to contact you because they just don't know, they're scared. So what do you do about it? It's called hacker-powered security, and it starts with a vulnerability coordination program. This is kind of a first step where you establish a process that you communicate to the outside world of what people have to do when they find a vulnerability. And it can be as simple as a web page that says, email us here if you find a vulnerability, and if you stick to these 3 rules, then we will not pursue any legal action against you. So it's kind of like a simple safe harbor for the researcher and also a well-documented process of what to do. Department of Defense calls it the see something, say something of the digital world. It's also called rolling out the welcome mat for a hacker. And I see it getting adopted a lot in compliance frameworks. Front runners here are automotive industry, healthcare. There's a lot of compliance around being able to report vulnerabilities in healthcare devices, medical devices. I think the same thing is going to happen in the finance space. Then if you move over to the bug bounty programs, that's kind of where you take a vulnerability disclosure program to the next level. This is where, instead of just being very reactive, of if somebody finds something, let me know, and I'll fix it. Here you're saying, hey, I'm going to offer you cash if you find something. Like, here's dollars if you find a vulnerability that's critical. It's also one of the best ways that engineers can learn through a bug bounty program, because you're going to get literally examples of where you made mistakes, so you can fix them. If you're doing any penetration testing, it will save a lot of money because you're just paying for the results instead of the time spent by a consultant. And we also view it as the kind of the cherry on top of the software development lifecycle. Like, if you know where your mistakes are, where your trends are, where your vulnerability is trending, you can kind of make decisions that will then probably maybe eradicate an entire category of vulnerabilities, or maybe you decide to educate a certain team that was working on a particularly vulnerable application, all these kind of things. So, when I said that it's pretty open and transparent, I was not kidding. This is what we call Hacktivity at HackerOne, and this is a feed where some of our customers decide to kind of disclose vulnerabilities after they are fully resolved. And they do this for a couple of reasons. They do it for extreme transparency about their security posture. Like, hey, we're serious. If we fix stuff, then we disclose it. So you can see how we handled it, how quickly we handled it, how nicely and polite we handled it. And for a hacker, it's a great way to show off what they can do, right? They can, hey, I made 3,500 for this bug. Something like that. So diving into an example, here's an example of what a hacker found on a company called ItBitExchange. And it was a hacker that just found a vulnerability to produce money using a rounding error in the platform. Basically, what they were able to do was, hey, if I send a transaction, very small, to the same account, then it adds the money to my account, but it never deducts the money from the same account. And if you repeat that a lot of times, of course, you make money. And the hacker reported it. Company responded very quickly, fixed the vulnerability, paid $1,000 for it. So this hacker obviously is very happy. Like, hey, I made legal money. Amazing. I helped this company. And the company itself, for just $1,000, was able to incentivize somebody to take a look, research the application, find a vulnerability, and then report it. So there's a lot of big bounties and big money and big headlines in this space. Just last week, I think, there was this hacker from the Netherlands that made $120,000 in just 1 week by finding a lot of critical vulnerabilities in the EOS cryptocurrency. Another example was Intel. They had a MIT PhD student, I think, who made $100K for finding a new flavor of the Spectre chip vulnerability. And Microsoft is offering $250K for similar type of security issues in CPUs. So there's a lot of money. Like I'm saying down there, top programs on HackerOne pay $20,000 for critical bugs, which is a lot. It's not cheap, but it's also because these companies have matured a lot. You don't start out there. Across all of our industries, the average bounty is just $2,000 for critical vulnerabilities, which means that with just the incentive of $2,000 for a critical bug in your system, not everything is critical, of course, you can incentivize a group of hackers to report and find vulnerabilities and stay off the blockchain graveyard, basically. All right, questions? Yes, we charge a 20% fee on the bounty. Yeah, we do have some of our customers that are basically only putting the protocol definition in scope of hey, this is what we're thinking about. Tell us where the flaws are. Does this have any architectural design flaws that I should be aware of?